Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Welcome to our session on how Gap balances security and self-service in their API program. I am Vijay Sairam Pratap. I'm a product marketing manager with Apigee API management at Google Cloud. And my co-speaker today is Patrick from the Gap. Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Vijay. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you to share a little bit of our API program story with you, specifically as it pertains towards the criticality of a developer portal. I'm an enterprise architect with Gap, responsible both for the structural elements of our API platform on Apigee, both in a on-prem data center as well as in the cloud, and for shaping our best practices with the API program. So thanks for the chance to share with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. With that, let's dive straight into the agenda. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we are going to look at this session in two parts. The first part is going to cover the new ways of shopping that are emerging and how that is changing the priority for retailers. And the second piece is going to focus primarily on how Gap is basically executing its strategy on delivering self-service capabilities to its developers. With that said, let's have a quick look at the new ways that the shopping behavior is changing for consumers. In this new normal of lifestyle, I think consumers are trying new things and forming new habits. For example, more than 50% of the surveyed shoppers that we polled basically said that they tried new shopping experiences for the very first time. Nearly 25% of the shoppers that we surveyed said that they went online to purchase something that normally that they would always go to a store for. And third, nearly 50% of the surveyed shoppers clearly said that they would love to have the option of curbside pickup even after stores reopened. This tells us something about the changing shopping behavior. Obviously, this is going to make retailers to rethink their strategy in terms of the areas of investment and priorities in this new world normal. In the interest of time, while I have 5 areas that have been called out on the slide, I will focus on 2 of them that I am very passionate about. One is boosting online experience. As of today, retailers are looking at their e-commerce investments and ramping it up so that they're able to take on this huge tsunami of demand that they're seeing emerging on their digital platforms. Second, they're also looking at how to amplify and leverage the data that they're receiving so as to create greater personalized offers for their customers. And the third most important thing is that retailers are now looking at the aspect of how to repurpose some of their existing investments in the form of stores into mini fulfillment locations, and also looking at how they can repurpose some of their store associates to become fulfillment managers. The second area where they're reimagining customer interactions. Customers are now experimenting more and more with technologies like video, AR, commerce, live events, etc. There's a lot more tendency of them leaning into completely adopting a digital approach to their retailer. The second is retailers themselves realize the kind of high call volumes that are being generated because of this new normal and are trying to adopt in areas like customer service, leveraging the power of AI to see how they can enable virtual agents to have very effective conversations with their customers. Also, having some of their virtual agents being expert assist agents for their human agents. So all these things are happening in the retail world from a reimagining customer interactions perspective. And retailers are now looking at investing more and more into sophisticated clienting solutions for associates, shopping experience assistant apps for consumers so that they can have a better shopping experience when they are in the store, and other more fulfillment options. Well, all these changes are happening. At the heart of all the changes, to deliver on the above mentioned priorities that we discussed, retailers need to focus on APIs. As we know, APIs are nothing but application programming interface. APIs are key enablers for most of these priorities that we spoke about, and are the de facto building blocks for building and sharing modern application in today's enterprise market. And second most important piece is the enablement of developers to leverage these APIs in the with the least amount of friction so as to create new world experiences. So how do we empower developers with APIs? That's going to be the question that we're going to try and answer in the next couple of slides. While APIs are key enablers, a first step towards handling APIs is to basically have an API management platform. You need these APIs to be delivered securely. They should be managed and analyzed across a multitude of your environments, be it on premises, cloud, private cloud, SaaS, and other IT endpoints. To navigate this complexity and to be able to manage your APIs in a structured fashion as a product, you need an enterprise-grade API management platform. Apigee is a multi-cloud API management platform. It gives businesses control over and visibility into APIs that connect applications and data across the enterprise and across clouds. Apigee empowers organizations to accelerate their business by unlocking the value of data and delivering modern applications such as curbside pickup instantaneously. So, if you look at the API management platform, you'll see it has four distinct areas. The first area is API Gateway, helps us basically expose services and data as consumable APIs. The second layer is mediation. Mediation engine enables you to basically manipulate messages as they flow through the API proxies. They enable you to transform messages like from XML to JSON, vice versa, etc. The third part is what is going to be the focus of this presentation, developer ecosystem, a section of the management platform that helps you manage the community of app developers that are using your APIs, you're leveraging your data or your services, helps you to work for both internal and external developers, and formalizes a relationship with financial models, and onboards developers with the creation of a developer portal. And the last piece is analytics. As the name suggests, the more you're able to measure, the better are you able to improve your interactions with your consumers. All the above mentioned areas play a critical role in helping you deliver your APIs products. For today's session, as mentioned, we'll look at the developer ecosystem part. Building API-grade products is just the start of an API program. There is no doubt that while publishing an API is a major milestone, but it's just the beginning of the process. The hardest part is once you have published your APIs as products, is to attract and engage developers who will build apps leveraging the APIs that you've created. So now let's look at what are the three main ingredients that go into creating an effective delivery platform. It's all about product market fit. Know your customer and consumer. Are they internal consumers? Are they external API consumers? Are they partner consumers? That tells you a lot. Understanding the requirements helps you package the product in the best way possible to enhance product market fit. The second is bring your APIs to market. It's like the Kotler's 5 P's of marketing mix. Place, digital storefront is important as to help your developers to find your APIs, to interact with them, to learn with them, and to actually engage with them. And the last is build a relationship. This is about creating a bidirectional flow of information where a great developer experience starts with your ability to be able to onboard, get developers to get fast track to their Hello World API, and more importantly, give them an option to solve the problems by themselves without having to depend on too much of human intervention. So we spoke about what are the three main ingredients that are required in a developer portal. So now let's look at the overall advantages of the developer portal. And if you look at the developer portal, there are four major advantages to the developer portal. The first advantage is it improves discovery. Stop recreating the wheel. You have the ability of surfacing all your APIs in a structured fashion over a developer portal, which will help the ability for people to search, identify, and consume those APIs. By just improving the discovery, depending on your business case, you actually help improve your relationship with your consumer, whether they are API consumers from the internal part of your organization or those external. So discovery is a very important part. The second is the entire aspect of streamlining and onboarding and self-service. This is the place where you basically help your API consumers to securely and quickly gain access to the tools and information that they need to explore, test, and consume APIs. Example, Smart Docs. I'm sure you heard about that. The third piece is learn from usage and improve. This is the part of optimizing API programs with the power of analytics, with the power of API performance analytics. Helps you gain visibility into the API usage, service quality, volumes arising across pricing tiers, and more. It also gives you deeper visibility into API performance and how developers use them. Use this data to understand app performance, traffic patterns, issues to make better business decisions. And the last part is security. API abuse will be the most frequent attack vector resulting in data breaches for enterprise web applications in 2022. That's what Gartner says. You need to ensure the fact that you can leverage the capabilities of the developer portal to package your API products and deliver them with role-based permission, manage product access and security with built-in app registration, and support for automatic and manual API key approval. You can do all this with the help of your developer portal. At Apigee, we do have a very robust developer portal strategy, and it is a tool that will help you build a world-class developer experience. It basically has three main components: catalog, which helps you discover, enables discovery, branding, theming, search; content, which enables learning, the QA, the blog forums, the support, and the analytics that you can provide to the platform; and the last is relationship, the bi-directional relationship that we spoke about through developer identity, app and key requests, governance, and API consumer funnel. Apigee Developer Portal comes basically in two flavors. The first one being the integrated developer portal, and the second one being a Drupal-based portal. And the considerations for this we have seen across our customers primarily hinge on two main parameters: the amount of configuration I want to do, or the amount of coding I want to do. And the second is a very simple budget and time availability. Great. Now that we've seen the advantages of the developer portal, we understand how Apigee can help you build a world-class developer portal. Now let's try and bust this myth about a developer portal is only for external developers and for partners. Is that really so? Let's talk to Patrick and find out as to how Gap is busting this myth. Patrick, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Vijay. Appreciate the chance to share with you what this is looking like us at Gap. Why we believe that integrated development portal is exactly the way we solve some of our most pressing challenges for an internal developer audience. Before I do that, let me share with you just a little bit about our company. Gap has been around for just over 50 years. Started out in 1969 as a single store doing blue jeans and vinyl records, both of which jeans are still as in style as ever, and thank God vinyl records have made a comeback. Today, Gap is a multi-brand global company, but with still those same values that have driven them for over 50 years. Specific to our API program, as I've joined our team, I've watched an API program grow into hundreds of APIs. The API platform team is onboarding both API producer and consumer teams. We'll talk more about those two personas in just a little bit here. We are onboarding multiple teams every single day. We've grown into over 200 developer apps where those teams, if you're a producer team for developing and testing your APIs, if you're a consumer team for weaving those APIs into amazing customer experiences. Billions of API calls every single year are flowing through the Apigee platform, both in our own data center as well as now in the cloud across multiple regions. What does it look like as you go and try to grow your API program and your scale and complexity increases? When I first joined the API program a few years ago, we had two major business initiatives, one that was customer facing, one which was workforce user facing. And we had about a dozen to 18 core APIs that both of those programs were focused on and relying on to meet their business objectives. Fast forward 5 years, and those 12 to 18 core APIs is now hundreds of APIs. I laugh now, but at the time we started this, those were managed in a Google spreadsheet, trying to keep track on where each of those were, which were in development, which were ready for prime time. No way on earth that scales to what we're facing today. I want to talk about this from the perspective of two key personas. Number one is the API consumer. What is the pressing question that persona has? When can I start accessing your API? They are hounding our API producer teams and the Apigee platform team on a daily basis. They are under tight commitments. They've got deadlines to meet. They got budgets they have to stay within. As was discussed in the introduction here by Vijay, COVID and the pandemic has caused teams to be able to need to pivot faster than ever. The rules of the game, what you can do in store, what you can do online, that is changing on a daily basis and region by region. What about the API producers? Their number one pressing question is, I want to help these consumer teams meet these business objectives. Is my API ready for prime time? Great, I've written my backend at business implementation. I have a proxy that I've wrapped that with. But is it really ready to turn loose to the masses yet? What we've learned over these last few years in evolving our program is that an API goes through a life cycle. It all starts with an open API spec. Apigee Edge includes a great open API spec 3 compliant spec editor. That becomes a point of conversation between the team producing the API and our InfoSec partners. It's critical that that be done at the early part of the life cycle. What happens if that's delayed is a team can be on the verge of a production go live only to find they have to go back 10 steps backwards. When you have those conversations up front in an agile fail fast mentality, it's very cheap to make changes. Maybe InfoSec says a given API needs to be locked down a little bit tighter, so it's going to use OAuth tokens instead of keys. Maybe there's manipulation that needs to happen on a JSON payload coming out of that API for a subset of the audiences that's less privileged. Those contractual details are worked out. Then you start dropping lines of code. You build your Apigee proxy, which is just as much a part of that API contract as the API implementation itself. It proceeds on to InfoSec for pen testing. If you've got Black Friday haunting your dreams at night, you are load testing those APIs, and eventually you are lighting that up for the world, which is what we're doing this for in the first place. That life cycle is a huge balancing act. The consumer teams are like the kid in the back seat of the car on the way to Disney World. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? They want the lowest friction self-service experience as absolutely possible. Meanwhile, as Vijay mentioned, APIs are a huge attack vector. None of us like the G word, but governance is essential if you're going to have a successful API program. You've got to make sure those I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that your APIs are secure, both those that are exposed on your internal network and any of those that may be exposed on your external network. As we've gone through our evolution of the program and built this life cycle into the way APIs are developed and made ready for consumption, we've found two major challenge areas I want to talk about real quickly. Number one is you have to have a single source of truth. When it comes to understanding which APIs have gone through that requisite gating, you've got to be able to go to one place and understand what's there. And for us, the perfect place to make that happen is the developer portal. If you don't see it, it's not ready for prime time. And that may vary. In that early part of the life cycle, the only people who can see that API should be the owning team and InfoSec. As it's gone through all that gating that I described, it's now going to be lit up for any API consumer audience. The second part has to do when a team comes in to request access to an API once it is ready for prime time. We have huge communication challenges. You may have a API consumer team with 10 developers, and they're reaching out to the Apigee platform team for access to this API that they need to meet their next deliverable for the business. And they're going on 3 different communication channels with 10 different people effectively asking for the same thing, but under just as many different names. It creates confusion, redundant effort, and cleanup that's required. These two challenges, we believe the Apigee Integrated Developer Portal is really well positioned to address. But I would rather show you than tell you. So with that, let me switch into a demo.
So I'd like to take some of these concepts that we've been talking about and show you what they look like in practice. So we've talked about APIs going through a life cycle and progressively being opened up for access to a wider set of audiences. So here we've got 2 APIs, USPTO and an end-of-month reporting. This first one you'll see is available to everybody. That has gone fully through the gating cycle. It's been certified by InfoSec. It's been load tested. It is ready for prime time. So it's available not only to the owning team and to InfoSec, but now to the consumers as well. The second API is earlier in that life cycle and is only available to the team that's building that API and then to InfoSec. The other concept we talked about is how you get in to governing that kind of access as it goes through that life cycle. And there's a few key things you want to see in Apigee Edge here. Number one are developer accounts. These are users who have created accounts for themselves within the developer portal. Those users may choose to create teams, which they will be then made the owner of. They can add additional members to those teams. And then there's this concept of audiences. We've got our broad audiences of API consumers, API producers, and then our InfoSec pen testing team. Now, right now, each of these has one team each, but there could certainly be multiple teams that are all considered an API consumer audience, for example. You also, once something is ready for full consumption by everybody, have the ability to simply say, if you're authenticated to the portal, you can see this. So those are the ideas that we have within Edge. So now let's look at things from the perspective of the developer portal itself. Right now, I'm logged in with a user that's going to simulate being a tech lead on one of the API producer teams. That tech lead has gone in, instantiated a team, Slick APIs. They are an API producer team. That user is the owner of that team, but is able to delegate responsibilities to other users who can also help in that day in, day out administration. You'll also notice that this team currently has access to one application suffixed with DevOps, which is a naming convention for API producer teams, where the APIs they access are those which they are developing and accessing purely for purpose of evolution and testing. We talked about those two APIs before, one that's already ready for prime time, so you'll see this team owns that, and then a new one which is undergoing development. Now let's come in instead as that user that was delegated responsibility within this team. So if that user logs in, you'll notice that they can see that team they were made a member of. They have admin access. Notice none of this is editable, so they don't have quite the same access as an owner would have, but they can drill into that application. Now, this particular developer on this team is actually the one responsible for this end-of-month reporting application. So they're going to go ahead and add that so that they can evolve that API, its backend, and its front-end proxy. They can leverage the API key and the secret, whether those endpoints are governed based on the InfoSec discussions by API key or by OIDC token. All of that is available for them. Now let's say this user has taken this far enough and they're now ready to have InfoSec begin pen testing on that application. What does that look like? So we're going to come in now simulating a member of the pen testing team. That user is going to come in. They can go to the application that they use for pen testing. And they've been working on this other one. That's already graduated, ready for prime time. They'll go ahead and remove that if they don't need that at the moment. But they're going to go ahead and add this new one, leveraging the same key and secret they've been using to commence that pen testing. So this API so far has visibility to a InfoSec pen testing audience, as well as the audience of the owning API producer team. Now let's come in from the perspective of a consumer. So we're going to come in as the owner of the consuming API team. They're building an application that needs this API. And you'll see there's already a team in place for this API consumer team. This user is an owner, and they've already delegated responsibility to one of the members on that team that's also doing development work. So that user is there. Now, right now, there are no applications. We mentioned during the introduction on this talk that the COVID pandemic has really shifted the way retailers are doing their business. And one of those is this notion of curbside pickup. So we're going to go ahead and create an application for that called Curbside Delight. And it's going to go ahead and use that product that's already for prime time. But they also know they're going to need the functionality that the end of month reporting API provides. Notice that right now that is not visible. So I want to stop a minute and talk about those two key challenges that we've observed these last few years. Number one was single source of truth. We said if you see it, it's available. If you do not see it, it is not yet ready for prime time. So notice the limited audience for the end of month reporting API was the owning team and InfoSec, but a consuming team cannot yet see that. That's that single source of truth, all in the portal. Second thing we talked about was communication. Even for those APIs that are ready for prime time, one of the things that frequently happens is multiple members of the same team will come in and make requests, some of them by text, some of them by email, some of them by ServiceNow tickets, all effectively for the same API, but leveraging different names for the API they're trying to get, for the dev app they want it added to, for what team they're a part of, creates endless confusion and a lot of redundancy. Notice here, this user came in, could see their team, their apps, and when they did that self-service request, it was already completely clear what they were looking for. Now in this case, they can get one of the two that they need, but not the second one. That's going to prompt them to go talk with that API producer team and find out what's going on. Now let's assume that they have that conversation and InfoSec says, you know what, we just completed our pen testing. The owning producer team, in the meanwhile, has been doing their load testing. That is now certified. This API is ready to be graduated. So previously it was visible only to the owning team in InfoSec. We are now going to make this API visible to everybody. We're doing that through consumers. You could also choose to move away from audiences and just say any authenticated user, depending on your requirements and your configuration. We're simply going to add consumers to this mix. Now, if I come back in as the member of that team that's consuming this, that needs end-of-month API access, they can drill right into the application. And notice they now have visibility to this. That app has graduated all gating and is now ready for broad consumption, self-service, and they've got themselves access to this. So you've seen a few key concepts. We've demonstrated this idea that you can have this experience, which is self-service, low friction, simplifies communication, leverages the portal as a single source of truth, all while not having to sacrifice governance that's key to a secure API program. Hopefully this gave you an idea. You might do this a little bit differently in your organization, but hopefully it gives you a sense of what a developer portal workflow might look like for an internal developer audience like we have.
I hope if you've gotten anything out of the talk here, it's a handful of key concepts. Number one, if you want an API program that's focused on innovation and agility, you have to have a low friction experience. Without that, it becomes frustrating for everyone involved. But that low friction self-service experience cannot come at the sacrifice of security. API governance does have to be there. We believe that a developer portal gives me a way to achieve both of those, to find that balance between the two. They don't have to be at odds with one another. There's a way to have both. And we think the Apigee Integrated Developer Portal is exactly the right way to accomplish this for GAP. There's a lot of developer options. I would be the first to tell you your organization may be better suited for the Drupal portal. Another organization like ours, we believe the Integrated Developer Portal is the better fit. You guys pick the one that fits your needs the best.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. That was amazing. I loved the example of the sheets. Oh my God. Imagine managing all those APIs through a spreadsheet. But you know what? I think Gap has come a long way, and I'm really envious about the kind of progress that you folks have made and are continuing to make. So I think the takeaways were great. But I have one question for you. If you were to change one thing about how you did things, what would it be and why?
If I could go back 5 years and do anything different, it would be to make sure that from day one, out of the gate, we had that developer portal in place. We're in process of moving from OPDK to hybrid. As we do that, that opens up the door for using the integrated developer portal the way I've demoed it here, unblocks us on all these major challenges. But if I could go back, we would have had that portal live from day one. We would have built those process flows with that low fiction but good governance balance already in place. And we would have built that collective muscle memory around what those workflows look like leveraging the portal, so that that's not something you transition into later. It's your starting reality from day one.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. This has been great. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us. I would like to thank everybody who has joined us for the session. I hope you had some nice key takeaways. One major takeaway for me is don't let a developer portal be an afterthought. Ensure the fact that it's a part of your thought process as you're putting together your API-led digital strategy. With that said, thank you and have a great day.